Hiya everyone. I'm just going to read out some of my recommendations that I was involved in the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. This is my second witness statement. It's my recommendations. I was a co-participant in the independent inquiry. I'm going to read this out, but listen. This is about an apologies. The Catholic Church, the Archbishop Bernard Langley, visited my house to give me an apologies for what happened to me under the Pope of the Catholic Church, the abuse, the atrocities. I believed him at the time when he came to my house. I thought he was genuine. Apart from it, it was just another PR stunt. Disgusting. I want to read this out to you. But this apology from the Archbishop was false. This is one of my recommendations. There was 20 recommendations put into the independent inquiry, from the independent inquiry to child sexual abuse in 2022. Not one has been implemented. This is a scandal, this is. £250 million got spent on this inquiry, £250 million. And your lawyers were on £1,750 per day. Went on for 8 years. Now, this is what survivors are on about, our recommendations. What was the inquiry set up for? Listen to this, but honest, this Archbishop and the Catholic Church, these apologies are fake. Lessons and recommendations. I have been asked to provide my views on two subjects. Lessons that can be learned from my experiences and any particular practical recommendations I would like the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse to consider making in their final report to the Roman Catholic Church. Acknowledgement and apologies. Archbishop Langley came to see me at my house on July the 30th, 2019. During that meeting, I set out to the Archbishop Langley the lessons that might be learned from my experiences and the changes that should be made to safeguarding children, to support children and had been abused in the future. I want to say that I had a very long meeting with Archbishop Langley. He listened carefully to my history and to what I had to say. He was in no rush and stayed with me as long as I wanted. I told him of my experiences and how it affected my life. Archbishop Langley accepted my account. He told me of the deep sense of shame he felt. He told me that he wanted to apologise to me on behalf of the whole of the Catholic Church. He was genuine, he was kind, and I believed him and accepted his apology. I don't accept it anymore, because it's all false. This takes me to my final lessons and recommendations. The power and importance of apology issues, if genuine. Of all these awful places I attended, I was a child at Croom Court, was the worst. There was no proper words to describe it or how cruel the nuns were. And I was said it was so bad that I made a determined attempt to commit suicide at the age of 10 and a half. At Croom Court and over the 5 to 6 years, I spoke out many times about what was happening to me. No one believed me. I grew up to understand that no one would ever believe me. As a child, it is a hard thing to feel that you have no one to turn to for help. As an adult, it sticks with you. It galls you. It gnaws at you. There's no one believes what happened to you as a child. You crave for someone, particularly someone important, and authority, or from the place who you are abused, to hear you and genuinely say, I believe you. I can see how much this has hurt you. I am ashamed this has happened to you. I am sorry. I want to stop it happening again, and I would like to help you. This was the Archbishop Longley said to me, and he said it with conviction and was genuine. I hope he was true to his word. At the moment, I believe he will be. No, it's fake apologies. This is what Archbishop Longley said to me, and he said with me conviction and genuine. I hope it is true to his words. At the moment, I believe that he will be. Sorry about that. Archbishop Longley came to my home, sitting beside me and looking into my eyes, saying things meant a huge amount to me. I felt like a big weight had been lifted from my shoulders. It's got even heavier, mate, Archbishop Longley. His apologies does not wash away the abuse that I suffered or the harm it caused. It does not mean that everything is suddenly okay in my life, but it is important and may allow me to begin to heal and move forward. Over the past years and during my involvement with the inquiry, I have met so many survivors of child sexual abuse, and so few of them have ever received an acknowledgement, apology for what happened to them in care, included in the care of the Catholic Church. I've seen their anger, that the responsible or those in charge now refuse to hear them, to acknowledge what happened and say sorry. I understood their anger because I felt it too. Victims and survivors of child abuse carry invisible wounds that cannot be healed until the people who allow the wounds to be made look at those wounds and say sorry and mean sorry. The power of a genuine, heartfelt apology with an offer of some support is hugely important. Unless what has happened is acknowledged, it is almost impossible to heal. This is a lesson that I think the inquiry can learn from my experience. I also ask the inquiry to think carefully about the importance of an apology and to make recommendations on the vital need for an apology. Yes, we do need an apology. Apology is what we need, but it has to be meant. Anybody can say sorry, but I tell you what, the Roman Catholic Church, they're only saying sorry. They're sorry they get caught. They don't mean the apologies. Why are they still treating survivors with contempt? I'll carry on with the next part. Deal with the effect of abuse quickly, or the consequences will be lifelong. In my meeting with Archbishop Longley, I told him how the course of my life was changed when I was 10. The fact that I was taken from a poor but loving home and put into care was bad enough. However, the cruelty and the abuse that I suffered from the nuns at Croom Court changed me completely. From a happy-go-lucky boy into a terrified, untrusting and desperate boy. When you are a child, you are just forming. What happened to you as a child shapes you, the man you become. I was battered out of shape. If someone had believed me then, cared for me and protected me, there is a good chance that I could have been put back together, but no one did. Archbishop Longley brought the diocese lead safeguarding officer with him to meet me. He told me about the change that had been made in the Archdiocese of Birmingham to improve safeguarding and how suspicions were quickly reported to the police and authorities, and suspect priests stood down from ministry by the Archbishop. I will return to this later in my statement. I asked him if the diocese had put a plan in place to support a child as quickly as possible after they had suffered abuse. I don't think he fully understands my question. What I was talking about came direct from my own experiences of not receiving quick and full support. When a child is abused, he or she is potentially damaged for life, and this was very likely, and the child is not provided with quick and full support. An unsupported child loses trust in others. It damages in many ways. Their education may suffer, and the direction of their life, like mine, may go off course. However, in my view, if a child who has suffered abuse is very quickly and fully supported, there is a real chance that the harm can be managed and the child can go on to have a good life. I think the inquiry should recommend some kind of guidance to be used by the Church and other bodies on how to intervene to support a child victim of abuse immediately and properly, so that the child has a chance of getting over the abuse and living a good life. This should be good for the child and good for society, because the cost of dealing with a damaged adult is far less than supporting a child earlier. Correct. The focus for most people is what to do to improve safety for children in the future. This is good. However, the inquiry was only set up because there were so many older people who were still struggling with abuse they suffered as children. I think the inquiry now knows how long-term, complex and serious the effect of child abuse can be. Also, that the effects of a child abuse do not stop with the victim, but often also affects their families, children and communities. Big organisations like the Catholic Church must have a clear plan in place to allow to how they will support older victims of historical child abuse. By this, I do not just mean money. What I mean is a range of things, including being open and honest about child abuse to stop it being a secret so that change can happen. Acknowledge that abuse happened. Apologising to the victim in a genuine way and mean it. Archbishop Longley and the Catholic Church, he didn't mean my apologies. 5 apologies I've had after you. Not one of them were fit for purpose. Reassuring the victims that the changes have been made to stop the abuse happening again. Learning from the victims. Providing support if it is needed, including monetary support if appropriate and needed. Support to access counselling if needed. Adult education if needed. Help with simple life matters like filling in forms and dealing with authorities. The last two things, adult education and help with simple matters, life matters, are very important. In my experience, many child victims have their educations disrupted, which means that they struggle to read and deal with many tasks in life, from filling in and dealing with officials. Then this inability often causes their continued problems throughout their lives. If a person's education has been damaged by abuse, then the responsible organisations need to make a real effort to put the right with the adult's education and support for the person gains the skills to get through life. Independence. As I said earlier, when he came to see me on July the 30th, Archbishop Longley brought the Diocese Leeds safeguarding officer with him to meet me. The officer told me about the changes that had been made in the Diocese of Birmingham to approve safeguarding, and how suspicions were quickly reported to the police and to the authorities. He also told me that if there were a suspicion, that he would immediately call the Archdiocese and inform him of the allegations, and ask the priest or the person stood down from the ministry by the archbishops. My problems with this is, it is not an independent process, and the church is still left to police itself. My experiences of abuse by nuns and Christian brothers led me to believe that the church normally looks after its own people and tries to protect them. I'm sure this is true of a lot of big organisations, although I think it might be even more so in the Catholic Church because of the type of organisation it is, where women are sisters and men are brothers. The Church has a bad history of child abuse. I do not see how you can trust an organisation with such a bad history to simply continuing to police itself. I think the inquiry should recommend a completely independent system for safeguarding in the church. I'm going to repeat this, please listen to me, and this is very, very, very important. I think the inquiry should recommend a completely independent system for safeguarding in the Catholic Church. The Church has a bad history of child abuse. I do not see how you can trust an organisation with such a bad history to simply continue to police itself. Well, that was my second witness statement, my recommendations to the inquiry. I was a co-participant at that inquiry, which was a total farce. £250 million spent in that inquiry. Nothing said about these recommendations or finished. They don't want to know. Nobody in the government don't want to know. Well, I've said enough. Bye-bye.